Welcome back to the channel, the place where we break down the stories the industry hopes you never really look at. If you're here for raw tension, uncomfortable truth, and the kind of drama most people are too scared to touch, you're in the right spot. Because today isn't just about two famous names, it's about a clash nobody thought they'd ever see lined up on opposite sides: Katt Williams versus Snoop Dogg.
Career down the road. People might not want to book you in Texas or Arizona or California.
Sir. Wouldn't that be fantastic?
It didn't start with an arrest, a diss track, or some messy social media meltdown. It started with a warning, and not from the police, not from a rival rapper, but from Katt Williams himself.
Snoop is just really hilarious.
Snoop Dogg is funny,
He's doing all these things.
The same Katt who never softens his voice, never cleans up his sentences for Hollywood, and never worries about who gets uncomfortable when he speaks. This time, he aimed that energy straight at Snoop and basically accused him of doing the one thing fans never thought he'd do: selling out. Katt didn't whisper it either. He dropped a line that felt like a shot across the whole culture. He said, "Down the road, people might not even want to book you in Texas or Arizona or California. Wouldn't that be fantastic?" You could hear the sarcasm dripping off every word. That wasn't a joke. That wasn't a random punchline. That was Katt drawing a circle around Snoop and saying, "This is what happens when you cross a line."
Yeah. Get your life right. Stop worrying about mine. I'm cool. I'm together. Still a black man. Still 100% black.
On the other side, you've got Snoop Dogg standing on stages most rappers never even get a ticket to. From death row to global icon status. From neighborhood hero to standing in rooms with presidents and billionaires.
I want to say this real quick, now on the political shit. All you people for the federal government that not getting paid right now, ain't no fucking way in the world y'all can vote for Donald Trump when he come back up again. If y'all do vote for him, y'all some stupid.
This is the same Snoop people watch grow from Long Beach chaos into a worldwide brand. The same guy who once swore he wasn't into politics at all, now popping up at events that are nothing but political. That's exactly why Katt's words hit the way they did. He's not just making fun of Snoop being everywhere, doing commercials, cooking shows, and brand deals. He's saying something deeper.
Inaugurated as the 47th president of the United States of America, Snoop Dogg performed at the Crypto Ball. Now, Snoop Dogg, he got the backlash because people are like, wait, this isn't the same Snoop from 2016 who had so much to say about the art.
According to Katt, Snoop stopped barking for the people and started barking for the system. He went from being the voice that called power out to being a face that makes power look friendly and safe. And here's the thing about Katt Williams. When he talks, it's never just to chase clout. He usually speaks when he feels something in the culture is off, when the energy isn't matching the image. So when he looked at Snoop and called him a political dog, it wasn't random. It was a warning, a signal that in Katt's eyes, Snoop is walking a dangerous line, stuck between power, politics, and the loyalty he once had to the street. But this clash isn't just about one joke or one event. It's about how a man who used to stand against the system ended up standing right next to it. And according to Katt, that shift comes with a price that Snoop might not be ready to pay. Because if the people start seeing you as part of the machine instead of the one exposing it, everything changes. And that's where this story really starts to get uncomfortable. Because to really feel why Katt snapped like that, you've got to look at who Snoop used to be in people's minds.
So ain't nobody gonna perform for Donald Trump, huh? Which one of you jigaboo gonna be the first one to do it? I'm waiting. I'm gonna roast the out one of you Uncle Tom just for doing it. Which one of you?
For years, he was the one standing on the side of regular folks, clowning politicians, saying straight up, "I'm not into all that political shat. If the government workers ain't getting paid, that's wrong." He even told people, if you lived through a shutdown and still went back and voted for the same dude, you were being straight up foolish. That was Snoop talking like the voice of the crowd, not the voice of the stage. Now fast forward to this new chapter the internet can't stop replaying.
Snoop is just really hilarious.
Snoop Dogg is funny,
He's doing all these things.
So ain't nobody gonna perform for Donald Trump, huh? Which one of you jigaboo gonna be the first one to do it? I'm waiting. I'm gonna roast the out one of you Uncle Tom just for doing it. Which one of you?
Trump gets sworn in as the 47th president. Big money people throw this glitzy crypto ball, and right in the middle of it all, there's Snoop performing. The same Snoop who once dragged that whole political circus is now part of the entertainment package, and the backlash hits instant. People online are looking at the clips like, wait, this is the same guy who used to go off on this stuff. What happened? It doesn't match the picture fans had in their heads of the man who joked about never selling out to politics. That's exactly the crack Katt sticks his finger in. He's looking at that moment and saying, this isn't just a rapper doing a gig, this is a symbol switching sides, because this isn't the Snoop people remember from the death row era, standing next to Pac, surviving that chaos and talking like he had nothing to lose.
Of course, Snoop has responded to the backlash he received for performing for a Trump event. One of the things he pointed out was that we always stick together. We're good at tearing each other apart, which is pretty constant. It's pretty consistent when somebody gets into trouble. It takes backlash from the community. It's always a communal thing. It isn't any action they took. It is the fact that we can't stay together, that we can't stick together, that it's us always attacking us. But that flies in the face of the reality of what's happening right now. It is not us who are tearing down affirmative action. It is not us who is tearing down DEI. It is not us who are tearing families apart. It is not us who have decided that affirmative action and rollbacks that have been that had precedent for 50, 60 years are gone. It is not us that is doing it. It is, I think most people are disappointed because they saw you a specific way, and you have a right to kind of interpret and do whatever artistically you want to. No one's begrudging you that. But why the attack on the community because they disagree with something you did?
This is a Snoop who's shaking hands with politicians, standing next to CEOs, and getting folded into the same machine he once cursed out from a distance. To Katt, that doesn't look like growth, it looks like a trade, and the contrast is wild when you zoom out. On one side, you've got the Snoop people fell in love with, the dog who made the streets proud, who called out the government, who felt like one of us even as he got bigger than life. On the other side, you've got the Snoop we see now, chilling with Martha Stewart on TV, popping up in insurance ads, smiling in pet food commercials. Still iconic, still beloved, but moving more like a brand than a breaker of rules. That's the version Katt is side-eyeing when he calls him a political dog, because the question he's really asking is simple and brutal. What happened to that dog? The one who barked at the system instead of entertaining it. The one who said he'd roast any artist who stepped on stage for a president he didn't rock with, only to later be the one on that exact kind of stage himself. That's where Katt draws the line and says, this isn't just evolution. This is a whole different animal, and he's not letting it slide. Katt didn't just wake up one morning and decide to come for Snoop out of nowhere. All year, he's been blazing through Hollywood like a walking lie detector. Steve Harvey said D.L. Hewley. He's already dragged half the comedy Mount Rushmore into the spotlight. Every time he sits down for an interview, he pulls another name out and starts peeling back layers. Deals made in the dark, friendships that were really contracts, brotherhoods that only existed as long as the checks cleared. So when he finally said Snoop's name, the whole room tightened up, because Snoop isn't just another entertainer. He's a symbol. He's the guy who went from death row to daytime TV, from wanted posters to Walmart shelves. And right when that crypto ball performance blew up online and people started calling him out, Snoop tried to frame the conversation in a way that sounded noble. He didn't jump on live and say, yeah, I did it for the bag, or I stand on this side now. Instead, he leaned into this idea that the real problem is always us. He talked about how black folks are great at tearing each other down, how we never stick together, how the community is always the first to attack when someone makes a move they don't understand. In his mind, the issue wasn't that he stepped onto that stage, it was that the culture wouldn't just clap and move on. But that's where the disconnect cracks open, because when you step back from the headlines and actually look at what's been happening, it's not the community out here dismantling affirmative action. It's not regular people bulldozing DEI programs, rolling back protections that took generations to build, or tearing families apart with policies they never asked for. Those decisions are coming from the same system Snoop is now smiling next to. So when he turns around and calls criticism tearing each other down, it sounds less like unity and more like deflection. And that's exactly the part that pushes Katt over the edge. In his eyes, you don't get to say you're standing for the people while acting like any pushback is betrayal. You don't get to rebrand genuine disappointment as hate just because it makes you uncomfortable. Katt's whole thing is that if you move a certain way in public, you should be able to answer for it in public. So when he looks at Snoop defending his choices by blaming the culture instead of addressing the power he's standing next to, he calls it what he feels it is: politics. Not truth, not growth, just politics. And that's why his warning lands like a punch instead of a punchline. He's not just saying Snoop switched up. He's saying Snoop crossed over to a side where the system gets protected and the people get blamed. And once Katt sees you on that side, he doesn't let it slide, no matter how legendary your name is. To really understand why Katt is pressing Snoop this hard, you've got to rewind to when Snoop was untouchable in a completely different way. Back in the early 2000s, he wasn't just some rapper with hits. He was the calm in the middle of the death row storm, the one who survived chaos that swallowed other legends whole. He walked out of that era with his name still golden, his influence bigger than ever, and respect coming from every direction in hip-hop. Jay-Z respected him, Ice Cube respected him, 50 Cent respected him. Every heavyweight who mattered in that era treated Snoop like the ultimate OG. He was the cool big homie of the culture, the guy who'd been through everything and could still walk into any room with that laid-back energy like nothing could touch him. Fans didn't just see him as a star, they saw him as a pillar, someone who could stand next to anybody and still feel like he belonged to the people. But slowly, quietly, the picture started shifting. shifting. Snoop began popping up in spaces that felt less like representing the streets and more like rubbing shoulders with power. It wasn't just music videos and rap tours anymore. It was political events, shiny corporate stages, brand campaigns, and high-level circles that didn't match the raw image fans grew up with. One minute he's clowning the system, the next he's standing next to it, smiling for camera. People started noticing that he'd go hard defending certain celebrities while staying strangely silent on others. He'd co-sign brands and campaigns that didn't really line up with the man who once talked like he was allergic to politics. It was subtle at first, just small moves, little choices, but to somebody like Katt who pays attention to patterns, those were the first red flag. Not because Snoop was successful, but because the purpose behind that success started to look blurry. That's when Katt dropped one of the coldest lines he's ever said. When they can't control you, they cancel you, and when they can't cancel you, they recruit you. In Katt's eyes, that's exactly what happened to Snoop. The industry realized they couldn't shut him down, so they decided to bring him inside, polish him up, and turn him into something safe. Same face, same name, completely different function. To Katt, Snoop stopped being the dangerous voice from the outside and became a comfortable symbol on the inside. They didn't want to mute him. They wanted to redirect him. Instead of barking at the gate, he's guarding it. And that's the shift Katt can't ignore, because from his perspective, the moment a legend stops shaking the system and starts making it look friendly, the culture loses more than just a rapper. It loses a guard dog. And the tension really started to heat up when Katt looked at how Snoop handled some of the biggest storms in hip-hop. When the culture really started shaking, that's where the gap between Katt and Snoop became impossible to ignore. While artists were getting quietly blacklisted, while people were risking their careers to call out how the industry really works, Snoop's energy shifted. He wasn't the loud voice on the front line anymore. He was more like the calm face in the background, cracking jokes, playing host, keeping things smooth while everything else felt rough. When folks started exposing the darkest parts of the machine, stories about exploitation, manipulation, abuse, and backroom deals, Katt noticed Snoop didn't lean into those conversations. He didn't amplify them, didn't echo the outrage, didn't throw his weight behind the ones pulling the curtain back. Instead, he played peacemaker or stayed quiet, like none of it had anything to do with him. But when Hollywood put on a gala, rolled out a red carpet, or threw some shiny charity event with cameras everywhere, Snoop was front and center. Sharp suit, big smile, posing for pictures with the same power circles people were warning the culture about. To Katt Williams, that wasn't loyalty to the community. That was loyalty to position. It looked less like a man protecting his people and more like a man protecting his seat at the table. And that's what cuts the deepest for him. Because if there's one thing Katt has built his whole reputation on, it's calling out exactly that kind of behavior, even when it burns bridges that could have made his life easier. So when Katt said he was sending Snoop his last warning and told him to stop being a political dog, he wasn't just throwing a petty jab, he was drawing a line. In Katt's world, there are two types of dog. There's the street dog, loyal, wild, fearless, a little rough around the edges, but always standing on truth. And then there's the political dog, trained, polished, obedient, rewarded for keeping powerful people comfortable. Katt believes Snoop started out as the first and slowly slid into the second. These days, Snoop is on TV more than he's in the studio. He's hosting shows, selling snacks, pitching insurance, pushing pet food, doing everything an international brand does. And that's the thing, he's not just an artist anymore. He's a corporation, one of the biggest to ever come out of hip-hop. Katt's not mad that he's successful. He's not mad that Snoop is rich, famous, and booked. What he's asking is, what kind of growth are we clapping for? Did Snoop grow as a man with deeper principles, or just as a logo that prints more money? Coming from Katt, that question hits different. This is a man who never played the safe corporate game, even when it cost him. The industry tried to blacklist him, paint him as crazy, drag his name through headlines, hit him with arrests, smear campaigns, all of it. And if you look at his career, it's obvious that a smoother personality could have made him richer and more comfortable. But he never softened up, never switched sides just so Hollywood would hug him instead of hate him. That's why people still lean in when Katt talks. They feel like he doesn't have a boss behind the scenes telling him what he can't say. He's not afraid of losing fans. He's not afraid of losing booking. What actually scares him is what happens when every voice with real power decides to play nice. Because once the loudest voices stop speaking for the people are left with nothing but carefully scripted soundbite. And in Katt's eyes, that's exactly the cliff Snoop is standing on right now. But here's where it gets even more personal, because this tension didn't grow between strangers, because Snoop and Katt didn't grow up on opposite sides of the map. They came out of the same soil, same coast, same culture, just in two different lanes, one killing rap, the other killing comedy. For years, their paths crossed in ways that looked nothing but positive. Snoop showed Katt love early on. Guest spots, radio appearances, backstage laughs, inside jokes, that easy West Coast chemistry. You'd see them together, and it felt like mutual respect, like two dudes who understood what it meant to climb out of nothing and turn it into something huge. But as time went on, that energy started to feel lopsided. While Katt was out naming names, Steve Harvey, D.L. Hewley, Cedric the Entertainer, and more, Snoop stayed quiet. Not a word to defend him, not a word to challenge him, not even a public that's between them, just silent. And what made it hit even harder for Katt was who Snoop chose to stand next to instead. The same people Katt Katt said were playing both sides of the culture, were the same faces Snoop was cheesing with in photos, arm around shoulders, smiling like none of that drama or truth-telling even existed. To Katt, that didn't look like neutrality. It looked like betrayal dressed up in designer clothes, because if you really stand on truth, you don't ghost it when it gets messy. You don't ignore it when your voice could actually change something. He summed it up in one brutal idea. You can't claim you're for the people while shaking hands with the puppeteer. And everyone in the room knew exactly who that was aimed at. Snoop. This isn't the first time people have questioned whether Snoop shifted sides either. Back in the death row days, he was all street loud, loyal, fearless, riding with Pac, talking like he had zero fear of the consequences. After Pac died and the death row empire started cracking, Snoop backed away from Suge Knight, walked out of that situation, and started building new alliances. He went to No Limit with Master P, then reinvented himself again as a more polished artist, then shifted into Hollywood, then full-on global superstar. Reinvention is the reason he survived in an industry that eats people alive, but it's also why some fans started side-eyeing him, wondering if the same dog who once barked at the system had quietly started guarding it instead. And here's where Katt separates himself from all that. He's not trying to erase Snoop's legacy. He's not pretending Snoop didn't open doors or change the game. He's not sitting in a dark room jealous of another man's success. What he's questioning is the soul behind the evolution. From his point of view, Snoop used to lead the culture. Now he just follows the script. He used to be the one speaking for the people. Now he feels more like a brand speaking for whoever cut the biggest check. In Katt's eyes, that's the real problem. Not the fame, not the money, not the trophy, the integrity. Because once the line between man and brand disappears, it's hard to tell who's really talking anymore. And that's exactly why when Katt throws out a warning like this, the internet explodes and everybody starts choosing sides. The moment Katt's words hit the internet, it stopped being just about two men and turned into a full-blown split in the culture. On one side, you had people brushing Katt off like he was just bitter. They said he was salty about Snoop's mainstream glow-up, mad that the corporations never embraced him the same way. In their eyes, Snoop did exactly what any survivor from that era was supposed to do: evolve, stay relevant, and stack his paper without ending up broke, broken, or locked away. After everything he'd lived through, they felt like he'd earned the right to stand on any stage he wanted, shake any hand he wanted, and cash any check he wanted without needing permission from the crowd. But on the other side, there were people riding with Katt all the way. They weren't hearing that bitter narrative for a second. To them, he was the only one with enough backbone to say what everyone else had been whispering for years, that some of these legends have been double dipping, talking like they stand on realness while quietly playing nice with the same system that keeps exploiting the culture, pouring street talk into the mic while the contracts and photo ops told a completely different story. In their eyes, Snoop had one foot in the rebel image and one foot in the corporate boardroom, and Katt was just the first one bold enough to call it out in plain language. And honestly, both sides are holding pieces of the truth, because this isn't just a simple beef, it's a clash between two completely different visions of success. Snoop represents the survivor, the man who made it through the fire, adapted to every era, and turned his name into a global empire. He played the game, shifted when the time shifted, and found a way to stay on top in a business that loves to chew people up and move on. Katt represents the rebel, the one who refuses to bend even when it would make his life easier, the guy who'd rather sleep less and stress more than sit down at a table he doesn't respect. That's why Katt's warning felt bigger than a punchline. Fans started decoding it like a message layered with deeper meaning. Some thought he was warning Snoop about karma, about what happens when you trade your authenticity for politics and pretend no one notices. Others felt like he was warning him about trying to play both sides for too long, because eventually both sides flip on you. The system doesn't really love you, and the streets don't really feel you. You're standing in the middle with nobody truly claiming you anymore. And then there's that third group, the ones who see Katt not as angry or jealous, but exhausted from watching men he once looked up to slowly turn into something he doesn't recognize. He admired these dudes when they were raw, when they were loud, when they were fearless. Now he watches them sit comfortably in the arms of the same system they warned everybody about. To him, they don't look like heroes anymore. They look like puppets with better lighting. Katt summed it up in one line that hits way harder than any joke: the moment you stop speaking for the people stop speaking for you. That's the heart of his message to Snoop, because no matter how global your name is, no matter how rich you are, no matter how many brand deals, movies, or shows you rack up, if the streets stop feeling you, your crown starts to mean less and less. The trophies still shine, the cameras still flash, but the soul behind it all feels empty. That's why this warning doesn't just sound like drama, it sounds like a crossroad, not just for Snoop, but for every entertainer who climbed the ladder and forgot who was holding it steady at the bottom. No matter how sharp Katt's words are, there's one thing nobody with a straight face can deny: Snoop Dogg's legacy is massive. This is the man who helped build West Coast hip-hop brick by brick. He took that Long Beach energy, that death row era chaos, and somehow stretched it across decades without completely burning out. He's lifted up younger artists, opened doors that didn't exist before him, showed what it looks like for a rapper to age into an elder without becoming a caricature. He didn't spiral into public breakdowns, he didn't crash out in front of the world. On paper, he aged with grace, but in an industry built on rebellion, that kind kind of smooth, polished calm starts to look strange. Hip-hop was never supposed to be comfortable, so when one of its rawest voices ends up perfectly at ease inside the same system everyone once raged against, people start asking questions. Did he really outrun the chaos, or did he just sign a peace treaty with it? That's the tension Katt can't shake. When he sees Snoop sitting across from powerful people on daytime TV, laughing, joking, making everything look soft and harmless, he doesn't see maturity. He sees compliance, and that's where these two men feel like complete opposites. Snoop is the cool breeze, steady, relaxed, calculated. Katt is pure lightning, jagged, loud, unpredictable, and brutally honest. Snoop has mastered the art of never letting the mask slip. Katt rips his off in every interview and dares everyone else to do the same. So when Katt looks at Snoop's perfectly controlled image, he doesn't read it as grown. He reads it as approved. Approved by the same machine he believes has been molding and muzzling the culture for years. That's why when Katt says last warning, it doesn't sound like a throwaway phrase. It sounds like a promise. He's not bluffing about being ready to go further. If Snoop even thinks about firing back, Katt will happily drag more names, more stories, more uncomfortable truths into the open. He'll pull the industry back into a storm it's been trying to escape for years. Because for Katt, this isn't just about Snoop, it's about what Snoop represents. At the core, this is bigger than two celebrities. It's a collision of two philosophies: truth versus tolerance, rebel versus rulebook, the fighter versus the figurehead. Katt stands for the raw, unfiltered side of the culture that would rather be broke and honest than rich and silent. Snoop stands for the dream, the kid from Long Beach who got out, leveled up, and turned himself into an empire. Both started real. Both shaped the culture in different ways, but only one of them refuses to play the Hollywood game, even when it leaves him out in the cold. In Katt's eyes, that's the whole difference. It's not about who has more money, who has more followers, or who has the bigger house. It's about who still stands on truth when the cameras go off and the checks clear, who still remembers the people who put them there, who still speaks for them when it matters, not just when it's convenient. That's why this situation hits such a nerve. It forces everyone watching to ask themselves what they really value more, comfort or courage. So now the question hangs in the air, heavy and uncomfortable. When Katt looks at Snoop, is he looking at the same dog from Long Beach who once barked at the system with no fear? Or is he staring at another piece of the machine, polished and smiling, programmed to keep everything quiet? Has Snoop truly evolved? Or did he just learn how to live comfortably inside something he used to fight? What happens next might be loud, or it might be dead silent. And in this industry, silence can be louder than any clapback. If Snoop says nothing, some people will call it maturity. Others will say it's proof that the power behind him doesn't want this conversation going any further. Either way, the tension doesn't disappear. It just settles in, right under the surface. And that's where we leave it for now. You've heard Katt's side. You've seen Snoop's moves. So I want to hear from you. Did Snoop sell out, or is he just playing a game Katt refuses to touch? Is Katt protecting the culture, or fighting battles nobody else believes in anymore? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Smash that like button if you're still here with me, and hit subscribe so you don't miss the next time the mask slips and the truth comes spilling out.